All right. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jillian Islami. I will be your Zoom host today. Our presenters will be getting started shortly. This is a reminder to keep yourselves muted throughout the presentation unless the presenter has indicated otherwise. If you have a question, please use the raise hand feature, which is located in the reactions icon, or type your questions into the chat box. All questions will be saved for after all the presentations. Please be aware that this presentation is being recorded and will be available for viewing after the conference. Live transcriptioning has also been enabled. You can turn that on or off using the live transcript feature. You can change the view by clicking on the view button on the right upper hand corner of the screen. We recommend speaker view. At the close of the presentation, I will be putting an assessment survey in the chat box. Please fill out the surveys at the end of each of your sessions, because again, that helps us make a better conference for next year. So without further ado, I will be handing the reins over to, you guys see the slideshow, right? Okay, just making sure. And we're going to get started with Margaret Dawson.
Hello. As I said, I'm Margaret Dawson. I'm from A&M Central Texas, which is in Killeen. And this is my email if you'd like to contact me. Next. So title is Cultivating Consortiums. So cultivating, I did choose that besides alliteration because it sounded nice. But also due to the fact that they do need cultivation. They need to grow and they need some nurturing. So the main goal is improving services for all of the libraries. So everyone knows, the main ones that are national, like OCLC, and Amigos and things like that. And they are for the good of all. So whether you're paying or free, you want to make sure that you have some kind of benefit overall to join them. Next. So if you were thinking about starting at your own consortium, whether formal or informal, the first thing you want to do, of course, is to consult with your administration. So, and depending on your library location, that could be, you need to go all the way up to, council or something similar, because these are, if it is a formal consortium, then there's many legal things that are involved. And then decide what libraries you're interested in partnering with. So is there another library, such as a public library or another university library, that you could work together to have better services? And then, like I mentioned, formal or informal. So an informal one, of course, is much easier, and you can just locally get together, and you might not have the benefit of, like if you were doing some kind of a courier service or something like that, but you could have lots of informal benefits too. Next. So this is an example of a Houston area one that is a formal consortium, and I was on the ground floor of this one. So long ago in the ancient days, it was North Harris Montgomery Community College District, and they started out by themselves, and then both Harris County and Montgomery County are the two public libraries that are closest. So Montgomery County is to the north, and of course Harris County is all through Harris County. So it was thought to be a good group to go forth so they could both save money and help out patrons. So their catalog is shared. So they share the cost of that catalog, which is Circe Dynex. And they also have a courier that goes through the locations, so they can borrow materials from each one. And there is a group that meets regularly, sometimes every 2 weeks, sometimes every month, and discusses issues that have come up if, who has how fines are handled through the various entities, things like that. And there's also joint libraries between Lone Star College and Harris County Public. So there's two locations that are in the same building and are joint libraries. So with those, you also have that consortium that's strengthened because you have that collaboration with them. So between all of them, it's worked quite well. They have no intention to disband it anytime soon. And it benefits everyone in that they, spend less money, and they benefit the patrons and the libraries themselves. Next. So for ours is a informal consortium, and one of the things that we have done throughout Central Texas is a Central Texas Reads. So it was primarily between us, the university, and the public libraries. And so we did it for 2 years, and decided on these two different books. And it went, I would say, in limited success, and that we didn't have a huge amount of people using it, but they did come, which was nice. Next. And this is an example of the To Kill a Mockingbird that some of the publications that we sent out. So the public library book club read the book. We did actually have a pretty important speaker for the movie that we were showing. We had the woman that played Scout was scheduled to come, but we had a lovely ice storm and it got canceled. So that was pretty sad. But the book club did have good attendance, and we did some other things around it. Next. So Great Gatsby, again, was the next one. So there was from jazz nights, dramatic readings, we showed the movie, we had a book discussion. So we did a lot of different things with both public libraries and the university. Next. So the movie hosting and then the dramatic reading was from the high school students. So they basically dramatized the play version of The Great Gatsby. It was their drama club. Next. So the jazz dance, so they got a band, people danced, there was lots of food, and it was a lot of fun. So people really enjoyed the jazz portion. Next. So this is our actual title. So the Central Texas Library and Museum Consortium. So basically it's an information consolidation, and we really focus on programming. So like I said, it's informal. There's no signed contracts or any kind of signed agreements. We do have a calendar where libraries can post events. That works out, I'd say, fair to middling, since most libraries don't end up posting events. But one thing we are good at is publicizing events with each other, such as, if you have a library speaker or summer reading, things like that. So other people can, know and see about it. And we have a pretty active email group. The other thing we do a lot of is like the two programs I mentioned. So the collaborative programming and coordination. So if you can share the workload and share the money. So those two things have been helpful. Next. So there are quite a few libraries that participate. So public libraries, obviously, as you can see, are the most common. So there's 14 of them, 3 academic, and then 3 museums. So our museums are very active. The Bell County and Railroad Heritage Museum, especially, they do a lot of programs and a lot of collaboration with the rest of us. So some of these public libraries that I've listed, some of them are really, really tiny and only have a volunteer staff. So, and they're only open a few days a week. and others are quite large and have, a really nice budget. So it ranges from small to quite nice. Next. So we did do a program with all of us, just about, which is Read Across Central Texas. It started in 2017. The 2020, like I said, was pretty severely impacted by COVID-19. And they usually could visit, they could visit more than 5, but when they got 5, they got a free book. So the friends of one of the public libraries at Harker Heights donated the books. We had a few, but they did the majority of it. Next. And the planetarium at the Central Texas Community College, Central, also as long with the local Barnes & Noble. So even though Barnes & Noble isn't one of the members of the consortium. And so I mentioned the museums. And so the Science Center at Central Texas College is a planetarium. So they have their own programs and a really nice viewing and some other artifacts. Next. So this is our service area. If you can see, Lampasas is at one end, and then it goes all the way across to Temple Public and the Heritage Museum. So it's a pretty straight shot from one end to the other. And they could, go from one to another, and they took pictures, they got stickers, and they really enjoyed it. One of the catches that we had to deal with as a university is parking. So they had to make sure to park in visitor parking, which not everybody did. But otherwise, it went off really well and people really enjoyed it. They posted to social media how cool they thought it was that they could go to different libraries and, see different things that they were doing. Next. So like I said, 3 different counties. So, and it was a pretty good area. Next. This is just some of our publicity. So, sometimes they had different programs that they could attend, and other times it was just the actual just coming and getting a sticker. Next. So as part of the consortium, I go to the public libraries mainly, sometimes the museums or the community college at Central Texas, and I bring our materials to their programs. So it's usually summer reading or makerspace or something like that. And without the consortium, we probably wouldn't do that. And so that's really helped them, the public libraries, know about what we have to offer. And then we also publicize their programs. Next. So some of the other events that we've done, one of them was at the Central Texas College, and multiple libraries did that one. Now it's called the Epically Geeky Expo. It was the Geek Fest. So it's their own Comic-Con, and we just had that this year, was just finished. And so we had a good attendance with various libraries, lots of programs. I did programs, and the other libraries did too. So it was, and we worked together on some of our programs. We did, for basically the, pop culture kind of things, and Star Wars, Star Trek, Harry Potter, that kind of thing. And one of the bigger ones is Bell County Comic-Con. So, and that's coming up in August. So we also have tables there and do programs. So that really reaches a greater audience than we would have been able to individually, because tables are $200 a piece at the expo. So with us getting in at a lower amount of money, then it's shared with all of us. And we also have a theme. So this year, the theme is heroes and villains. So we'll have programming and tables along with that. So in conclusion, as long as so if you have an interest in, finding a consortium, cultivating a consortium, somebody does need to do the work, whether it's shared work across all of you or one person doing the majority of it. And like I said, it does need to be nurtured and grown. So that's why I used the cultivating. And if you're interested, please, contact me and we can talk about it. And like I said, both the formal and informal ones have worked really well. And I hope you give it a try.
Thank you, Margaret. Hi, everyone. My name is Tara Carlisle. I'm the director of TAMU-CC's Texas A&M Corpus Christi's campus-wide digital information literacy program, and I'm going to talk about the Project Zero's wonderful educational resources that we're using to strengthen our undergraduate students' digital information literacy skills. Next, so what is What is Project Zero? It's a Harvard-based collaboration of educators and researchers committed to understanding deep learning, thinking, and creativity in a range of disciplines. Through their collaboration, educators and researchers develop educational tools to support teaching and enhance students' learning experience. So through their website, they offer a variety of lessons and that are designed to foster critical thinking very simply. Next slide. At TAMU-CC, we use Project Zero's Thinking Routine Toolbox, which consists of lessons that can be adapted for a variety of disciplines. Thinking routine lessons consist of questions or a sequence of steps that scaffold students' learning and promotes that critical thinking skill. Most incorporate active learning strategies, learning techniques that emphasize problem solving, group work, hands-on activities, or peer teaching. And in the arrow below, you can see that one can filter by finding a subject or a level, because these lessons are really K through 16, so or more higher education, secondary, all the way up through college level. So next, please. The lessons are designed to help students pause and essentially think out loud as they process new information. So as David Perkins wrote, he was one of the Project Zero's contributors, educator and contributor of lessons. He says, at any moment we can ask, is thinking visible here? Are students explaining things to one another? Are students offering creative ideas? Are they and I using language of thinking? Is there a pro-con list? Are students debating interpretations? So again, as you can see, this active learning and also that thinking out loud strategy. With these learning routines, students take a more active role constructing their knowledge rather than passively receiving information from an instructor. Some lessons, such as Think, Pair, Share, focus on a group of work that encourages sharing perspectives and fostering discussion. Other lessons, such as Claim, Support, Question, are completed individually so students can reflect and focus on their own thinking process. So in addition to turning in a finished project paper or completing a test, we want students to demonstrate how they developed their topic or how they came to their answer their question. In terms of conducting research and information literacy, students would describe their thinking process while finding and evaluating resources for their research topic. So they're making what's from generally an invisible process to a more visible process. Next, please. At TAMU-CC, how did we use Project Zero's Thinking Routine Toolbox? First, about TAMU-CC's Digital Information Literacy Program. It's a campus-wide program that integrates student learning objectives into our undergraduate curriculum across disciplines at 3 levels that teach students specific information literacy, digital information literacy skills, such as strategically finding information, not just on the open web, but library databases and the open web, effectively evaluating information, and creating and communicating. So far, we have 60 faculty participating. The diagram on the lower right, it shows how we're scaffolding specific learning objectives at these 3 stages. Level 1 teaches foundational skills for first-year students. Level 2 focuses on, as I said, critically evaluating information for when students are in their major programs as sophomores, juniors. And then the third level is integrated when students are taking capstone courses. Next. We met with faculty who are integrating SLOs in their course, these digital information learning objectives in their courses, to discuss ways, how can we help you? How can we support you in teaching students these skills? And we landed on Project Zero, recommending Project Zero's Thinking Routines Toolbox. We actually recommended 2 specific lessons and added them to our faculty LibGuide for our faculty who are participating in our program, that aligned with the learning objectives that they were integrating in their courses. And we were delighted to see faculty from 6 different subject disciplines, use the lessons in their courses. 2 faculty from very different disciplines, philosophy and electric engineering, were able to use that same lesson, the same learning routine, claim, support, and question. And so in the next 2 slides, I'll briefly describe each of these lessons and their outcomes. Next. The red light, yellow light activity provides students with practice finding generalizations, bold claims, gaps in evidence within a resource or argument, and practice pausing to ask questions when those moments arise. The students love this lesson. They just love that kind of kinetic, and they also love the ability to, use their red lights and their yellow lights. And of course, in criminal justice, it was perfect. The professor is a lot of fun, and it just fits so well with criminal justice because you're using red lights, yellow lights, and we're talking about laws and so forth and breaking. So it was a lot of fun. She had a lot of fun with her students, but also her feedback was that it revealed to her, the criminal justice professor, students' lack of confidence when evaluating sources that are, broadly available on the web. And these set of skills that they were going through and they were practicing together, it was both fun, but it also taught them that practical set of skills for evaluating a source's credibility, and they felt, a lot more confidence as a result. Next. The other lesson that faculty used, core thinking routines, it addresses core thinking, and it's claim support question activity, same claim support question activity. And the 2 disciplines that use this, one was philosophy majors, and the other was for electrical engineering majors. And so these lessons provide students with practice identifying claims with evidence and asking questions within their field, within their subject field. So students would read one source and answer some reflective questions about that source. And then after that, they were asked to read a second source that had a little bit of conflicting information, and then provide reflective questions. And so one of the sources that we had as an example, as a sample, was like, eating chocolate is good for your health, is good for your health, and that it will help you lose weight. And so, it was all looked quite legitimate, and students said, yeah, this is great. This is awesome. And then they read the second one, which is based on sound evidence and more scientific approach, and it debunked that first article. And so it really kind of helped students be very aware of how sources might look legitimate, but we really have to be questioning those, and we have to verify them. So philosophy, he used a source about intelligent design, and then a second resource was a critical analysis of intelligent design. It was not debunking one or the other. It was just 2 viewpoints that he wanted students to consider. In electrical engineering, the first source, it was clearly outdated, but he had students read that initially without telling them anything to see if they came to those conclusions. And then, they discussed it. Then he had them read the second source, which is much more up to date and sound and peer reviewed. And then they were able to see, oh, I see. They were able to see that contrast. Next, please. And for those last two lessons, both faculty who taught that lesson were pleased with the result and said they're going to continue to use it in their courses because it pushed their students to kind of support their reasoning with evidence. So these lessons are easily adaptable for different disciplines. They're freely available on Project Zero. They promote active learning strategies for faculty. They're kind of small step ways that faculty can integrate active learning in their class if they're not used to that. That promotes visible thinking where students are sharing their ideas and their thinking process with each other. And they're perfect for practice activities or a summative graded assignment. Next. So that's it in a nutshell. I would be glad to provide, these are my reference, I'd be glad to send them to you. You can reach out to me through tamucc.edu. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. All right. Hello. Welcome to Serial Shenanigans, where I show you the results of a daily morning quote discussion I started last fall. I am your host, Mac Neese, and I am periodical staff at Cornett Library at WTAMU. I am new to library science and have a background in music performance. You can read more about me in my bio on the conference portal website under Serial Shenanigans. Next slide, please. Some days you think, I'd like to pay a lot of money to live in a small room and hear jackhammers all day, so you book a flight to New York for a visit. I posted this quote in LibAnswers to all library staff around 8:30 a.m. on Friday, January 12th. I'd found it in a random political article in the National Review the week prior and had saved a picture of it on my phone for later. Why would I bother busy librarians and fellow professionals in this way? This quote is way more entertaining than it is educational or professional. Why waste their time? Jillian, next slide, please. Today is actually my 1-year anniversary working in library science full-time. When I was first hired at Cornett, I found a whiteboard tucked under my desk. The initial onboarding process for my job was fairly slow, so I had time to scribble a song I liked or a cool fact or an interesting quote pretty much every morning and prop the board up by my desk. Looking back, I don't remember quite why I did this. Perhaps it was to help my coworkers get to know me better, or to ease the transition into a completely different career, or maybe just to entertain myself. As it turns out, I wasn't the only person entertained. A large number of staff walked by my desk to enter and leave the building during the summers, so a lot of people saw the board and enjoyed it. It was silly, informal, and turned into a great way to meet my lovely coworkers. After a month or two of whiteboard shenanigans, our department head, Mary Rausch, mentioned that it may be worthwhile to post my whiteboard scribbles in Cornett Library's internal company chat. I was both flattered and flabbergasted. That day happened to be the day I complained about a raw chicken fiasco at my apartment the night before, and I did not feel comfortable interrupting everyone's workday to announce there was a half-cooked chicken in my fridge. I wanted this kind of project to be more relevant to my job. And I realized it might be a wonderful opportunity to both increase awareness of the physical periodicals that we receive and a good excuse for me to become more familiar with the collection. I would often find interesting, educational, and humorous material while processing the newly received periodicals and started collecting quotes. I created modified Chicago-style citations, mostly because I had not realized that libraries primarily use APA and musicologists use Chicago. Old habits die hard, I guess. I sent these quotes to Mary for review and began posting daily quotes on the first day of school, August 21st, 2023. Next slide, please. To be honest, initial reception to the periodical's quote of the day was mostly confused. It took a couple weeks of posting to get the ball rolling. In August, I was lucky to get any response to a quote, but by January 12th, it was a whole different story. That dumb quote about visiting New York to have a miserable time sparked a conversation about travel, food, average heights in other countries. I learned a lot about New York and hot dogs at Broadway. During the morning, 104 messages had been sent in the company chat. Somehow these quotes had sparked excitement and enthusiasm to start the day. This was amazing. And also a bit of a problem. Our research and access staff had to keep lib answers notifications on speaker to be able to speak to patrons through our public chat, and I had created a very annoying problem for them. It was very shortly after January 12th that we began looking into other messaging systems and eventually migrated the project to Microsoft Teams. Next slide, please. So here is some of the data. The periodicals quote of the day has turned out to be quite an effective way for our staff to build relationships. I will first cover this quantifiable data because it was a delight to collect. As of May 1st, I had selected 172 quotes to share. That's around 200 now, and either posted them myself or had my supervisor post them while I was on vacation or out sick. January was right after the holidays, so we tended to have more discussion then, and with a whopping average of 33.76 average comments per day. We had a total of 3,640 comments by May 1st, and I've selected a few favorite journals. I tend to choose more quotes out of the Austin American Statesman, so we tended to have that tended to be more discussed. The Christian Science Monitor Weekly has provided thought-provoking quotes on food and community service that we have thoroughly enjoyed, but our favorite is the Dallas Morning News. I'll get into how I know this in a couple slides. Next slide, please. Here are the average comments per day for each month of this fiscal year. You can see the slow start to the project with 0.56 responses per day back in August. The dip in responses in March was because of our migration to Microsoft Teams and a chaotically busy end to our 50th anniversary celebration. But the number of comments matter very little, honestly, as long as we're learning and enjoying ourselves along the way. Next slide, please. Every month I further pester everyone with serial shenanigans by sending out a survey asking them to rate their favorite quotes that month. This chart depicts our favorite journals based on those ratings. The dark blue section in the bottom left corner is New York Times Magazine. This pie chart was really stubborn. By a landslide, the Dallas Morning News has been our favorite periodical, earning 4 pedestal positions this year and first place in October. Next slide, please. Here is that first place quote in October. If you believe Wendell is your missing tortoise, contact Dallas Animal Services. And an article called 200-Pound Tortoise was on the run. Fun fact, the owner was found and the tortoise's name is Lorenzo. We have learned a lot about each other through these quotes, from owning turtles to knowing how to care for livestock to learning who not to ask for animal advice. That's me. We became much more aware of our individual areas of expertise and how we acquired that knowledge. We have library staff with international experience in several STEM fields, and excellent information seeking and research skills. In this way, the quote of the day has helped us recognize each other's strengths. Next slide, please. Here's the winning quote for December. There is a moment in the latest Godzilla film when the creature glares directly into the camera. Its snorting, radioactive rage every bit as infinite and incomprehensible as it was in the 1954 original. But look carefully behind those mad, luminescent eyes, and there is something even more boundless. Fatigue. I would be dishonest if I didn't say I have connected with some staff over Tired Godzilla and board games and other nerdy stuff, and I'd like to think I am at least somewhat responsible for our new board game Thursday lunches. In response to a comment about Takis, our government documents librarian brought several bags of Takis for us all to try, then promptly took the bags outside of the building when the smell became too powerful for us to stomach. Stories have emerged, joy has been sparked, and even those who do not participate in the quotes have expressed that they enjoyed observing the conversations each morning. Next slide, please. So why did my supervisors encourage this fun project? The stories the quotes have encouraged arguably contain value by themselves, but projects such as these expose and share our professional and personal knowledge as well. In the information industry, knowing how and where to find information is essential to serving our patrons. Better understanding each other's expertise beyond our job descriptions is incredibly useful for finding accurate and updated information quickly. Even those who simply read the conversations gain this benefit. Additionally, these quotes increase trust and enthusiasm. Engagement is a bit of a management buzzword, but it has become so for a reason. Building trust and staying engaged in our jobs and learning to have a laugh every once in a while is vital to maintaining a healthy workplace culture and keeping us sane. Not everyone has to participate. We have several staff who do not engage with or read the quotes, but the option is there for those who need it. Next slide, please. So how else can we encourage interlibrary conversations? The following suggestions are from Denise Brush in an article published this year. The citation happens to be an APA as opposed to all of my Chicago citations. These options are great, but may not be what you're looking for. Some of these options are old school. Food is always a great option. But some of them are a little old school. Others, like Slack messaging, are newer, but might be too informal for your needs. There are so many different ways we can achieve this goal, and sometimes it's right in front of our noses. How might you implement a fun project to instill trust and better explore the ocean of expertise, experience, and perspective offered by those around us? Please send me your suggestions at the end of these lightning rounds. Next slide, please. That wraps things up. Once again, I am Mac Neese. Thank you all for giving me your time, and I especially would like to thank the staff at Cornett Library for humoring me and participating in this project. I hope you, that sentence is messed up. I hope you gained something valuable and fun from this presentation. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'm posting my email in the chat.
Thank you. I'm Lori, and I'm the Director for Special Collections and Archives with A&M University Corpus Christi. Thank you, Jillian, for moderating our session, and Margaret, Tara, and Mac for your amazing presentations. And now that I'm hearing about food, my presentation is over. Thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch. I also want to say a large thank you to the attendees for being part of the lightning round and listening to our presentations. I really hope you enjoyed them. Special Collections and Archives, SCA. Oh, 1 second, we'll just go back 1 slide, please, Jillian. Thanks. Work to establish connections, develop trust, and share priorities with individuals, local organizations and groups, state agencies, and corporations. When it comes to community engagement and donor relations, it is easy and familiar to present ourselves and the work we do in the same tired routine. Communities and donors perceive SCA as keepers of history, where archivists preserve old things. We are also guilty of perpetuating this perception, even though we do so much more. In this context, community engagement builds and strengthens relationships and provides opportunities. Donor relations work to empower communities through their financial and networking support, as well as donation materials. So the monotonous and repetitive activities can lead to disengagement, and we become invisible. We really fade into the background. Next slide, please. Thanks. Alternative approaches have the potential to attract new donors and retain existing ones. Presenting ourselves and our work in a new light reimagines how we engage with donors and can also lead to new services. For my lightning talk, I am focusing on digitization as an example. While we agree that digitization is a component of our work, we tend to manage each digitization project as a single entity, digitizing a photo for a media request, or a letter for a researcher, or a fragile map for preservation. In this sense, archivists and librarians perceive these as yet another typical digitization project. SCA is leveraging its networks to strengthen existing partnerships and in creating new ones. Utilizing one of its flagship collections, SCA is working with a long-standing partner, the Conrad Blucher Institute for Science and Surveying, or CBI, towards obtaining a large format overhead scanner for the digitization of oversized surveys and fragile survey notebooks. CBI is also helping us to expand potential partnerships with county surveyors as part of creating new services. SCA is also approaching this differently. Rather than having a project to meet a need, SCA is working to deliver benefits that align with its strategic objectives and those of CBI. That is, we're taking a programmatic approach. Next slide, 2, please. There we go. Um, so reimagining digitization from policy perspective, it begins to formulate into a service, and a service that we can link to a strategic objective. Even though in its early stages, SCA and CBI are partnering to develop new digitization services for potential and existing donors, such as county surveyors, and for cultural institutions, such as museums and art galleries. Eventually, this service would extend to local businesses and community members, and this is following our relocation to the downtown area of Corpus Christi. Cost, staffing, and other related facets still need to be fleshed out. In so doing, the digitization service begins to strengthen the institutional, professional, and geographic mosaic of our partnerships and networks. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. Donors are looking for new, brighter, or more intriguing, yet proven and sustainable opportunities and becoming less interested in supporting the same project or need. Shifting from project to program allows SCA to create new opportunities to attract new donors and provide reimagined opportunities to existing ones. Donations still may be archival material, so again, those documents and photographs, or they can be financial. Sometimes they're also both. Additionally, services have the potential to become revenue generating and thus augment monetary donations. In regard to digitization services, SCA is building upon existing relationships to help create new ones. Networking with cultural institutions allows SCA to establish ongoing reciprocal relationships, enabling these institutions to access digitization services they can't perform in-house. And so rather than limiting our interactions to one-time projects, we're broadening that. In this way, everyone meets their strategic goals and becomes more sustainable. How SCA, CBI, and county surveyors are creating new opportunities. And in this case, surveys rely on historical data derived from the plats, maps, and field notebooks. Working with CBI and county surveyors to digitize and provide appropriate metadata, we can then meet our strategic goals, and everyone can also be part of be met, which also helps everyone else to meet theirs through a service program approach. Broadly speaking, as the relationship is more complex, SCA can digitize and preserve the valuable and significant historical data. CBI can ensure that data is available and accessible for decision making so that the surveyors who go out into the field can verify the accuracy and compliance of property lines, construction, and codes. Thus, digitization leads to the work being more sustainable. Through this approach of proposing and creating new services, SCA increases its networking potential to new donors. This includes the donation of field notebooks and the ability to tap the surveying community for funds to purchase a large format overhead scanner. Next one, thanks. So SCA and CBI have a strong relationship that has been developed over several years, which makes this a good example of moving from project to service and the impact of a positive partnership. The existing relationship serves as a model for building new relationships with other organizations and donors. For SCA and myself, this is a work in progress as we continue to move forward. As with any change or movement, there have been some lessons learned that I would like to share. So some of these lessons are identify the need or goal. A service or program should be able to address a long-term need or meet a strategic goal rather than being project focused. A service or program should be scalable and robust to be sustainable. Encourage partnerships and networking. Support for the service or program is beneficial when looking for funding. Networks also lead to new and unexpected donors, and that can be for both archival materials and funding. Understand the framing of the service or program. So this kind of goes a little bit back to my second point of lessons learned. Be mindful of your audience when promoting the service or program. What needs does the service or program address? And grants may require that the service or program be more project focused in order to be successful. So understanding your audience in this case also is really important. A grant that may be more program oriented in its writing may be less successful for a grant that is actually project based, although it seems backwards. And really also be kind to yourself. This doesn't happen overnight, and your timeline may not be realistic. Networking is meant to enhance and not compete with other needs or strategic goals. And that's really important as well. SCA is working to get funding for a new downtown building. And so I have to make sure that any grants or fundraising that I do doesn't compete with that of the downtown building. Thanks. So moving forward, challenges will arise as we move forward. Do not despair. Over the past year, I've been able to partner with CBI and start a relationship with a cultural institution and faculty. In moving forward, I'm learning from my successes and missteps, and I am also gaining more interest in the program from future donors. I've been phrasing the digitization program and service for close to a year. I know it will take time and I need to be patient. Again, I've got to be kind to myself. Bringing more awareness to SCA and its potential has opened more doors for us. So thank you very much. Next slide. And this is my contact information. So if you want to reach out, feel free to do so. I'm happy to hear from you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That was fantastic. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Are there any questions for any of our speakers today?
I have a question for Margaret and Mac. When starting out on your projects and doing the consortium and also doing the serial shenanigans, for the consortium, what was one of the impetuses that got you going, and have you been able to be successful with getting funding from it from donors? And for Mac, with your serial shenanigans, is this something that can be developed into something maybe university-wide to create more outreach for the library?
For mine, there isn't any donors. Each library, so when we're doing a group program, each library, contributes. We decide, usually in advance, who's going to cover what, and we go from there. But yeah, since it's totally informal, there's no kind of, donors or money at all. And so when we're doing the programs that go across multiple locations, each location mostly pays, and then some of the other libraries will donate things like food or things like that. But yeah, it's all super informal.
Thanks.
For the quotes, for a while, for a couple of months, we posted the winning quote of the month in our library newsletter that went out to all staff. For a variety of reasons, that project has ceased, but I am thinking about ways that we can incorporate this to all staff. And it's an excellent question and excellent consideration. And honestly, I need to think about it more. But thank you.
Oh, thanks. Those are two fantastic projects. It would be fun to implement the quotes, like a monthly quote using archival records. I think would be kind of fun.
Ooh, that would be excellent. Just because I see it in the chat, Mark has asked, do I have a favorite reaction to a quote? I don't have a favorite reaction to a specific quote, but I have two favorite types of reactions. The first is when a coworker who does not usually participate in our discussions has something to say. It's usually very insightful and very fun, and I'm always just very excited to have elicited that kind of response. And my second favorite kind of reaction is whenever I post something that is because of the nature of periodicals, they're a bit sensationalized, a bit dramatic. So I do enjoy it when I can get a good reaction out of Bruce Wardlow, because he is a very well-educated man and is like, these are all of the reasons why what this has been posted is incorrect. And I always learn so much when he posts those. So those are my two favorites.
I legitimately thought you were going to say something about the, like, when we get so far off the beaten path that it's indistinguishable from the initial quote.
Yes, a lot of times it does.
It happens far more often than you would imagine. Just as a, for instance, with today's quote, we have started talking about how cutting in line as an adult leads to murder. So that's been fun. Anyway, fantastic job, by the way, to everybody. Very much enjoyed it.
At one point, one of our former librarians started posting like emoji Pictionary guesses for movies in the chat, and that was another one of the catalysts to moving to Teams. But we ended up trying to guess movies based on a series of emojis, and that was a little bit less based on any of the quotes, but it was very fun nonetheless. It was one of my favorite things we've done.
All of that is fantastic. Or do we have any other questions for any of our presenters today? I've thrown the survey link in the chat a couple of times, so hopefully you see that. Please fill it out like we said. I also mentioned earlier that, like, well, we're gonna have lunch next. No, we have another session. I hope everyone makes their way to another session after this. We've got library academic continuing education, and then our review services 101 at 11 o'clock. So I hope you all choose one of those and you enjoy that session and then have a fantastic lunch. I don't know what time it is. I don't know where I am. So thank you everybody for coming today. Thank you for joining. I am going to stop recording.